The lantern's glow cut through the Montana night like a beacon, the first unnatural light Jake Harlan had seen at his isolated ranch house in a decade. He reined in his horse, every muscle in his rugged frame coiled tight, his Smith & Wesson revolver heavy on his belt. Out here in the Bitterroot Valley, 30 miles from Missoula, unexpected visitors spelled danger rustlers, squatters, or worse. But as he nudged open the creaky door, what waited inside stopped him cold. A woman sat in Mary's old rocking chair, poring over Mary's faded journal by the dim firelight. Auburn hair tumbled over her shoulders like autumn leaves in the wind. The same slender fingers that had once brushed his cheek, the same elegant sweep of her neck that had invaded his dreams for 10 lonely years. Mary! The name slipped out like a whisper from a grave. She lifted her head, and those piercing green eyes locked onto his, but the face was fresher, fiercer, untouched by the hardships that had claimed his wife. "I'm Lydia," she said softly. "Mary's sister." Jake's hand twitched toward his gun. In that instant, the fortress he'd built around his shattered heart started to crack. 10 years of isolation, 10 years of grieving faithfully, and now Thiza, living echo of the woman he'd lost, perched in her spot. What does a man do when the ghost of his past shows up in the flesh? When longing crashes into shame like a runaway train? Buckle up. Folks, this tale from the American frontier will twist your gut and challenge everything you think about love, loyalty, and second chances. Montana Territory, November 1892. The wind howled down from the Rockies, carrying the bite of an early winter that had already crippled the cattle drives. But Jake Harlan scarcely felt the chill anymore. It had been his shadow for a decade. He'd been a different man once, before the blizzard of '82 stole his world. Memories hit him like a gut punch. Mary Whitaker had been 22 when she stepped off the Northern Pacific train in Missoula, straight from Chicago high society lace gown, diamond studs, and that entitled gay city girl's warlike armor. But Mary saw past Jake's rough edges, his scarred knuckles from breaking broncos and branding steers. She saw a future. "You don't say much," she'd teased at the harvest fair, her hand light on his sleeve. "Don't have much to say to fancy types like you," he grunted back, true to form. Her laugh rang out like church bells on a Sunday morning. "That's precisely why I want to hear it." 3 months later, she'd shocked her family by wedding hymn-swapping satin for homespun, opera houses for a log cabin, gas lamps for kerosene under the vast Montana stars. For 3 blissful years, she'd thrived. Jake saw it in her smile as she kneaded dough at dawn, in her eager hugs when he rode in from the range, in the letters she penned to her kid sister Lydia, brimming with delight at their humble life. "I never knew peace could feel this wild," she'd murmured one twilight, her head on his chest as they watched the sun dip behind the peaks. Then the winter of '82 struck like a hammer from hell. Snow piled 10 feet high, wind screaming at 50 below for 8 endless weeks. Mary fell ill and the fourth pneumonia ravaged her lungs. By the end, Jake was clawing her grave into the iron-hard ground with frostbitten hands. She passed, gasping his name, her eyes glazed, staring at some distant light he couldn't follow. Back in the present, November 1892, and now her sister invaded their sanctuary, flipping through Mary's intimate words. The likeness stabbed like a knife, but where Mary had been calm as a mountain stream, Lydia burned like a brush fire. "How'd you track me down?" Jake demanded, holstering his piece at last. "Mary's letters." Lydia rose, and he noticed how the frontier's edge had already honed her the plush curves of urban ease, sharpening to something raw and resilient. "She described you, this ranch, her joy here." "Joy?" The words soured on his tongue. "She died in that bed, begging for help I couldn't give. She lived first, Lydia shot back, her tone sharper than Mary's ever was. 3 years of real life, that's more than most get. Outside, the gale rattled the shutters. A blizzard brewed. He sensed it in his joints. With Missoula 30 miles through jagged passes, this woman, this perilous reminder, would be stuck here overnight, maybe days. It should have scared him spitless. Instead, watching her glide through Mary's kitchen with innate poise, a frozen part of him began to melt. For the first time in 10 years, something akin to warmth flickered in his chest. But warmth, Jake was about to discover, could scorch worse than frost. For weeks blurred into a haze of tension and temptation. Lydia couldn't boil water without scorching Itchard biscuits, watery stew, coffee strong enough to wake the dead. But damn if she didn't try, rising at dawn to tackle chores with grit. She couldn't sit a horse for beans either. Her first roundup attempt saw her tumble twice, nearly gored by a rogue steer. Yet she climbed back on, cursing under her breath, earning blisters and respect. Mary had adapted seamlessly, born for ranch life like a Mustang to the plains. Lydia battled for every inch, her determination a force of nature. And Lord help him, Jake couldn't stop staring the way she chewed her lip in focus, swept stray curls aside with a flour-dusted hand, arched her neck laughing at her own mishaps. She was unlike Mary in her fire, yet so alike in her spirit. Then came the night that shattered everything. December winds battered the cabin like fists. Jake had ridden to Missoula for provisions, leaving Lydia solo a blunder that would haunt him forever. He caught the whiff of trouble first. Acrid smoke, sweat-soaked hides. Danger. 2 outlaws had her pinned in side drifters, trailing the mining camps, scavenging what they could rob or ravage. Through the frosted pane, Jake spied Lydia cornered against the wall, Mary's ancient Winchester trembling in her grip. One thug loomed close, the other barred the exit. "Easy, darlin'," the leader slurred, reeking of rotgut and menace. "We just need shelter and some hospitality. Get out," Lydia snarled, voice steady despite the fear in her posture. "I'll blow your head off." He chuckled. "You even know which ends which." Jake slipped in silent as a cougar, honed from years fending off predators fanged or two-legged. His blade sank into the first man's back before he could yelp. The second whirled, only to stare down Jake's revolver barrel. "Get," Jake growled, the quiet kind that brooked no argument. The survivor eyed his fallen buddy and fled into the storm. When the smoke cleared, Lydia crumpled into Jake's arms, the rifle thudding down. She quaked like aspen leaves, feeling vulnerable for the first time since her arrival. "You're safe," he breathed in her hair, inhaling her faint lavender scent. She gazed up, eyes wide and stormy in the hearth's glow. Something snapped between the man, unspoken barrier crumbling. She wore one of Mary's old frocks, the lavender one with pearl snaps down the front. Her hair had loosened in the fray, cascading in waves. In the firelight, she was a vision that could unman a saint. "Jake," she murmured, and the hunger in her voice set his blood ablaze. His hands cupped her face, thumbs grazing her jaw. She leaned in, lips parting, pulse racing at her throat. The dress had ripped in the struggle, bearing her shoulders' creamy arc. His gaze lingered, and instead of shying, she undid another snap, then one more. Fabric pooled lower, revealing soft swells that made his knees buckle. When she tugged at his shirt, fingers fumbling with desire, he didn't resist. Buttons scattered. Her touch traced his battle-scarred torso, igniting sparks. "Lydia," he rasped, equal parts caution and craving. But she was deaf to restraint, hands dropping to his belt. As skin met skin, the outside world vanished. They staggered to the bed, shedding clothes like burdens. She reclined on the quilts, hair fanning like a halo, and Jake nearly broke from need. She pulled him close, and then his eyes snagged on the tintype by the bed. Mary's wedding photo, her serene smile piercing him like judgment. He jerked back, gasping, "I can't. Lord, forgive me, can't." He snatched his shirt and bolted to the barn, leaving Lydia stunned amid the tangled sheets, betrayal etching her features. Outside, the tempest eased to murmurs, but inside Jake, a maelstrom raged. Some cravings, once stirred, devour everything. 5 days dragged like eternity, they circling each other like wary wolves. Jake buried himself in labor-patching barns that held fine, herding stock already secure, scouting fences till his mouth frothed. Anything to dodge the accusation in her eyes. She acted normal, brewed his coffee, botched his suppers, but the easy banter died, silence thick as fog. On the 6th dawn, she vanished. No farewell, just an echoing void and the distant rumble of a stagecoach toward Missoula. Jake lingered in the threshold, clutching Mary's photo, the one that had saved him from ruin or robbed him of salvation. He couldn't parse it. 3 hours later, he spurred his horse townward, resolve hardening. Missoula's depot hummed with frontier bustle, prospectors, settlers, dreamers fleeing or chasing fates. The afternoon train to Chicago puffed on the rails, primed to haul folks back to polished streets. He spotted her at once. Lydia on the platform in her travel suit, the same gray wool from her arrival, trunk at her feet, staring at the locomotive like a noose. She seemed so fragile, so adrift, not the warrior who'd stare down bandits with a gun she could barely cock. The whistle blared. All aboard. Jake swung down, boots thumping wood. She sensed him, shoulders stiffening, but didn't turn. "Heading home?" he asked. "Back to where I belong." Pain laced her words. "You made your stance clear what I mean to you. You're the most perilous woman I've known," he admitted. "You could make me shatter every vow, cross every boundary I swore sacred. And for a man like me, that's hell." The engine hissed a final warning. Lydia grabbed her trunk, but paused. "She's gone, Jake. Mary's been dust for 10 years, and you've been buried with her. Maybe that's fitting." She pivoted, eyes flashing. "Would Mary want that? Or would she want you alive, not a walking tomb?" Before he could retort, she boarded, claiming a window seat. Through the pain, their stares clashed. The train jolted forward. Lydia flattened her hand on the glass, wavering as if she'd halt it, cry out. But she held firm. Jake watched till it vanished, then mounted up for his hollow home and the specters lurking there. Yet some specters fight to linger. 3 days of torment followed Lydia's departure, what Jake dubbed his personal inferno. 72 hours pacing the cabin like a trapped bear, her ghost everywhere. Her off-key humming over pots, her silhouette by the fire with a novel, the bed linen still scented with lavender and remorse. On the 4th morning, he saddled up instinctively, body overriding mind. He needed her back. The trail to Missoula stretched endlessly, each mile a test of nerve. What words could mend this? The station shimmered in noon haze. His horse heaved from the punishing pace. But as he scanned the crowd, his heart seized. There she stood, Lydia amid baggage, her gray suit swapped for plain calico, Mary's lavender dress, the one with those snaps, the one from that fateful night. She eyed the eastbound train, but gazed westward toward him. Eyes met across the throng. Chaos faded. Jake approached deliberately, like taming a skittish filly. Folks milled reunions, farewells, deals, but only she mattered. "Thought you headed to Chicago," he said, near enough to count her freckles. "Got to Butte." Her whisper trembled. "Couldn't go farther." "Why?" She studied her hands, Mary's hands, but tougher now, calloused from ranch toil. "On that ride, it hit me. Mary didn't just rave about this land. She praised you, the man who sparked her joy with a glance, showed her grace and grit, loved her so fiercely he'd sooner perish than dishonor her ghost. The whistle shrieked. Final call. But she also wished you happiness. Lydia pressed on, eyes locking his. True living, not mere survival. Something fractured in Jake's core 10 years, barriers dissolving. Lydia, don't. She silenced him. If you want me on that train back to Chicago and some banker named Theodore Grant, vanishing forever, say it. I'll go. She inched nearer, green eyes flecked with gold. But if you want me home, if Mary might pardon us for embracing life over mourning. Passengers surged aboard. Jake grasped her hand warm, vital, no phantom. Come home, he grated, voice raw with buried feeling. With me. The train chugged off empty of them. As they rode back across the sweeping valleys, shadows trailing, they weren't fleeing history anymore but forging ahead, hand in hand. Years later, their ranch thrived, kids' laughter echoing where silence once reigned. Jake and Lydia built a life unmarred by regret, honoring Mary's memory while claiming their own joy. Love, they learned, doesn't die, it evolves, fierce and forgiving. What do you think? Was Jake right to move on with Lydia? Or should he have stayed loyal to Mary's ghost forever? Drop your take in the comments, team Second Chance or team Eternal Mourning. Let's debate this one out.